Rockstar games often receive high praise for the stories they have in their games, and this is true for many of them. San Andreas, GTA 4 and the recently released Red Dead Redemption 2 have received a lot of critical acclaim due to Rockstar's fantastic and engaging storytelling, and Bully is no different, as many of the fans do love the story and the characters Rockstar introduced. However, like with all forms of storytelling media, it does suffer from a few plot holes, and in today's video I'm going to be going over 4 of Bully's biggest plot holes and some very minor ones too. Remember, don't take this video too seriously. I'm not doing a review on the works of Shakespeare here, so let's get on with it. I do consider Ernest Jones to be one of the best written characters in Bully due to how he's handled and portrayed. For example, he's not only seen in his dedicated chapter compared to characters like Darby, Johnny and Edgar were. Instead, Ernest makes appearances in chapters 1 and 3, alongside being the main character of chapter 4. But I did notice a major flaw of his character, and that is a few of his appearances happen to be in missions which are actually major plot holes. So let's go over these, starting off with the school election storyline. Now, I've spoken quite a bit about this on my channel previously, mentioning it in my Ted and Ernest character critiques, and even having an entire episode of Bully Mysteries dedicated to it. Anyway, in the first chapter of the game, we can see the academy is decorated with posters for an upcoming school election between 2 students, these being Ted Thompson and Ernest Jones. And towards the end of the chapter, we have a mission that revolves around this, which was to be a little bit expected if you're familiar with Rockstar games. And in this mission, we protect Ernest for his speech against the jocks who are looking to publicly humiliate him, and after doing so, that's it. This storyline is never heard from again. We never find out who won, or what effect this has on Bulworth or any of the cliques either. But in fairness, you're not really expecting the game to jump ship to Ernest's story right away, so you don't think anything of it. But the election is never brought up again, not even when we next meet Ernest in chapter 3, or even the entirety of chapter 4, which fittingly does revolve around nerds versus jocks. Now this is a real shame because the school election storyline could have played a major role in the events of chapter 4. Aside from the obvious reasons, it does give us a bit of backstory to why Ernest would like to get revenge on them. Who knows, maybe Rockstar did originally have plans for this to go somewhere. You know, maybe like a side storyline like Hattrick vs Galloway, or maybe this could have even been the original focus of chapter 4 before it was changed. I don't know, I just think it's a bit weird. But speaking of that, even the first mission of chapter 4 makes no sense at all. Like when we last met Ernest in chapter 3, Jimmy was on good terms with him, and the same goes for when we first met him in chapter 1. But for some completely unexplained reason, in Stronghold Assault, Ernest and the nerds completely hate Jimmy. But what for exactly? Also, how did Ernest know where Jimmy was when he entered the back part of the library? Okay, this does have a slight explanation behind it, and it's actually to do with cut content and a mission change, as originally, Paparazzi was going to be the first mission of chapter 4, while Stronghold Assault was the second, and Defender of the Castle being third. Well, fourth if you consider Ernest's boss fight mission, which does tell us that Ernest assumed Jimmy was going to be with the jocks looking to beat him up for the pictures of Mandy. But as this is cut content, this isn't canonical. So in the canon, this makes no sense at all. But even then they could have made up some excuse and linked it to the election somehow, like say, I don't know, Ernest lost the election and went insane because of it, which could explain why he hated Jimmy until he was brought down. The Jimmy's burning has more plot holes in it than Swiss cheese. The mission begins with Mr. Burton accusing Jimmy of committing arson on his gym, and after a brief argument, Jimmy rushes in to save the 3 students who are tragically caught up in the fire before the police arrive. Simple enough. After Jimmy rescues the 3, Mandy tells him that she saw somebody downstairs, and when Jimmy finds him, Gurney attacks Jimmy and runs out the now burned gym shouting "I regret nothing," through the same door where Mr. Burton and the others were. Now for some reason, Jimmy's never cleared of the accusations, even though he's clearly innocent for a variety of reasons. One being what I just said, the culprit literally running out the gym shouting. Secondly, Mandy saw the guy who started the fire, and given how friendly she is to Jimmy and how popular she is at school, would have definitely cleared his name with the others, especially she's outside when Gurney runs out confessing his crimes. Also, are we going to ignore how this fire even started to begin with? There are piles of trash thrown onto the floor in multiple places. Surely somebody must have seen this guy coming in and out of the gym multiple times throwing garbage all over the place. This isn't exactly as subtle as just soaking the floor with gasoline and lighting a match. Like, if I was at my local gym and some chav came in with a bin bag and just emptied it all over the floor, he'd soon be told to pick his shit up and get out. Probably even punched too. And given the fire started as the class was happening, and he was hiding in the girls' locker room, there is absolutely no way nobody saw Gurney other than Mandy. And this fire was only started on the right side of the gym, where the students were. You can probably guess where I'm going with this. This mission makes zero sense for Jimmy to be accused by everybody. There's no way for Gurney to set off the fire without being seen, or even any reason for Jimmy to be accused to begin with. But the other stuff the townies did in this chapter does make sense, like sabotaging delivery so chaos doesn't begin until the crate is opened. or even stealing the Preps trophies, as they could have broken into the Preppies gym when they're not there. And there's no real proof the Townies did anything, but this one, they're pretty guilty, no matter which way you look at it. Also, let's quickly talk about the mission's cutscene here. Why is this guy here exactly? He's a completely cut character from the game, who for some reason only appears once and is never seen again. This guy is just a beta character. For some reason Rockstar never bothered to remove him from this cutscene. He's just really out of place here. Secondly, Mr. Burton also mentions something about trying out for the football team, which we never have the option to at any point in the game. Not even after the story, not even like in chapter 1, at no point do we get the chance to try out for the football team. After Jimmy gets expelled from Borth Academy, he meets up with Pete to find Russell and launch a full-on assault on the Townie hideout to take them all on. Now the first part of the mission is to travel to Russell's home and then drive to the hideout. But here's the thing, how does Jimmy know where Russell's house is? Or even where the Townie hideout is located, or even knowing whoever the hell Edgar is? Okay, in fairness, we do see Russell in Old Borthvale bullying the shopkeeper in chapter 2, but it's never implied that Russell lives in the area. In fact, to most people, this situation could just look like as if Russell was buying something at the shop when the shopkeeper offended him. This is the only time in the story prior to chapter 5 we see Russell in the story outside of the first chapter. And the second plot hole arises when Jimmy arrives at Russell's house.
Hey, Russell! I need your help to bust into the Dropout's hideout!
Only if Russell gets too destroyed!
Much like the plot hole above, at no point in chapter 5 does Jimmy know about the Townies' hideout. The only thing we do know is they occupy Blue Skies, but that's it. No mission even hints at this either. The closest thing we do get is in Preppy's Vandalize, where we go to the warehouse and then the docks. And given the tone of Jimmy, it's implied that he does know where the Townies' hideout is, while Russell doesn't and he's just tagging along. But for some reason, Russell actually does lead the way. Well, this actually sort of has to do with cut content again. Going back to the gym is burning, in the original game, after getting assaulted by Gurney at the gym, Jimmy would give chase to him across Bullworth on a bike, eventually landing in Blue Skies Industrial Park, and to be very specific, the hideout which Jimmy and Russell storm. Now another weird thing here is Edgar's name is first heard in Bustin' In Part 2. We never hear of anybody called Edgar or know of him even existing until this mission, which is like the second to last mission in the entire game. It definitely sounds like there's a missing portion of the story where Jimmy goes snooping around and overhears or maybe even sees Edgar himself. You know, maybe something like how in, say, GTA San Andreas when CJ finds out Smoke and Ryder were the ones responsible for the Grove Street drive-by, which led to the death of CJ's mother. Actually, that could have worked in Preppy's Vandalize, but say Edgar is there at the trophy burning, or, you know, say a one-off quip where the Townies would say something like, Edgar wants us to go and burn these trophies at the docks. Now I know some of you might be thinking, maybe Jimmy did meet or see Edgar in the gym is burning when Gurney made it back to the plant. But in the original beta mission, Edgar did not appear at all in that mission. Now going off the missing story portion theory, it's entirely possible that Edgar did appear in chapter 5 before the original fight, possibly either in a mission or a deleted confrontation scene, because in the game's files there does exist a beta version of the Busting In cutscene, where Jimmy addresses Edgar by name when talking to Pete. Also note how Jimmy doesn't mention anything about being expelled here.
We gotta teach that Edgar kid a lesson.
We've got the old Jimmy back.
That kid is a lunatic. I bet if we knock some sense into him, he'll turn on Gary.
All right, what's the plan?
It's really complicated.
Great.
Yeah, I march in there and beat the crap out of him.
Well, at least it's subtle.
That's right.
Now this to me definitely says there was a portion of the original story with Edgar playing a more noticeable role, but was ultimately cut with the only remains being mentions of him in events that didn't happen. So time for the little bonus portion of the video, which is the very minor plot holes and some errors. So in the mission Wrong Part of Town, Ernest is worried for Algernon's safety as Johnny Vincent is going after him for being with Lola. Okay, that's really tying in nicely to Johnny Vincent's paranoia. But when we find Cornelius, for some reason Gary's here. And all that's known is Gary's helping Johnny, but what for exactly? To try and turn Johnny against Jimmy? It's never explained why or what Gary's up to here. And this is not even mentioned again when Jimmy is on bad terms with the Greasers either, so maybe Rockstar just wanted to remind us that Gary exists? Also, after rescuing Cornelius, he mentions Algernon's at the pizza parlour, which does not exist anywhere in Bullworth. When doing the mission Loader's Race, there's something a little off about the cutscene. Jimmy arrives and Johnny says they're at Lola's house, despite the fact this is the middle of the street, with no home in sight. And in the mission The Rumble, Jimmy chases Peanut and proceeds to fight him and two other greasers who are Vance and Lefty, and Jimmy even talks to Vance in this mission. But in the cutscene straight after the fight, for some reason, the greasers that Jimmy supposedly fought are now Peanut, Hal and Ricky, who had absolutely no role in this mission at all. So let's get straight back onto the major plot holes, well, the last one at least. Now Buddy's ending, while decent, isn't exactly short of strange plot holes either. So Jimmy meets Zoe and expresses his feelings for her, and she tells him that a massive fight has broken out at Borth Academy. But how does she know this exactly? She doesn't even attend the academy nor leave Blue Sky's industrial park. And going off Edgar's quote in the next scene, he doesn't seem to know either. It's also never mentioned what happened for the rights to kick off, although to be fair it is heavily implied to all be Gary's work. Anyway, what happened to the girls and the non-clicks? They all completely disappeared off the face of the damn planet without a single trace or reason. Maybe that UFO that took the hobo is responsible here too. Anyway, after Jimmy beats up the main group leaders, he meets Edgar inside and Jimmy gets busted by Seth and all his weapons taken off him, and Russell goes to exact revenge like the great friend that he is, and Jimmy goes to take on Gary for everything he's done. And this is all solid for the most part, until Jimmy defeats Gary. So Jimmy and Gary fall through the glass ceiling and they're in Crabble Snitch's office, and Gary's just there lying dead on the floor. Now all this seems normal, until we realise there is no glass ceiling to be seen anywhere in Crabble Snitch's office. So what did these two fall through exactly? Also, why is Jimmy completely unscathed while Gary's nearly dead? They both fell from the same height, so I guess you could chalk this up to Jimmy being a badass, but if he falls from a similar height outside this cutscene, he ends up at the nearest hospital. This could be plot convenience, but then again, I think this particular thing is actually some fan theory as well about Jimmy's actually dead, and that's why Endless Summer is endless, because Jimmy died while falling from the roof. Although there's nothing to really back it up other than the fact it's Endless Summer. Anyway, let's get back to the main story and what we actually know. So with Gary defeated and expelled, we see everybody is finally at peace, and it's never explained what actually happened for the riots to stop. Like, what happened while Jimmy was chasing Gary? Or did the riots end after Crabble Snitch was freed? Did Edgar do something? He just seemed to run off and that was it, that last we saw of him. What happened to Russell? Did he get busted by the prefects? Did Seth get his ass kicked? Did Russell retrieve our weapons for us? Or did the police outside the gates storm the school? It just seems really abrupt for the riots to end like that. And given the townies' reputation around Bullworth, there is absolutely no way any of the cliques would listen to Edgar. The townies are without a doubt the least popular clique in the game. So what about the police? Well, they were outside, but they didn't do anything. Or anything we saw anyway. And they seem to have disappeared sometime when Jimmy was fighting Gary. Now I know someone in the comments is going to say, but what about the ending? How did Zoe get there so quick? Well, to be fair, if you notice, when Jimmy does fight Gary, it's during the night, but when he comes out the school, it's day, so it's not exactly a major plot hole, but it could be that Jimmy came at the school the next day or something, I don't know. But yeah, Buddy's ending is a bit weird in the plot hole department, I think. There's just a few unanswered questions and a few very unlikely events. So yeah, that's really it for today's video. Those are the 4 major plot holes in Buddy alongside some very minor ones. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, be sure to subscribe for more Buddy based stuff than that, and thank you for watching.